Ladies and gentlemen, the meeting of Cabinet will start shortly. Thank you. The chamber microphone is currently on mute.
Just to confirm, we have now unmuted the microphone. Thank you.
Now, good afternoon. Can I take the first agenda item, appointment of chairperson? I'm happy to chair this afternoon's meeting. Could I have a proposer and seconder, please? Thank you, members. Agenda item 2 is the chair's announcements. So good afternoon and welcome to this hybrid meeting of Cabinet on the 30th of November 2022. I'm Councillor Steve Hunt, leader of Neath Talbot County Borough Council. Can I welcome members of the public who are viewing this meeting, and can I ask them to please ensure your microphones are switched to off and as you are here to observe the meeting only. Please ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting also. Would all members and officers virtually viewing this meeting please ensure that their microphones are switched to off unless you are speaking. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members who are virtually attending this meeting could raise your electronic hands, and for members physically present, please raise your hands. I also have an urgent item for us to consider today, but I will deal with that under urgent items. Before I go to declarations of interest, can I firstly bring in Craig Griffiths to provide advice to committee this afternoon? Craig, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. So what I'll just be doing here, members, is just repeating the advice ultimately that I gave within the Scrutiny Committee just now. It's just important that it's formally on the record for your Cabinet meeting today. So as you will be aware, there's a report on the agenda today regarding the School Strategic Improvement Plan. This proposal is a new and fresh decision the members will make, so the fact that you may have voted in a particular way at a previous meeting will not amount to predetermination, provided you retain a genuinely open mind in respect of this new meeting. As you will know, when arriving at decisions relating to any of the Council's business, you must do so with an open mind and consider all the information before you objectively, having due regard to the advice of officers. During the decision-making process, you must act fairly and in the public interest. You are required to make your decisions on the basis of the facts in front of you and not to have made up your mind in advance of the meeting. If you consider that you have come to a settled view or decision in respect of this matter and are unable or unwilling to take into account any other representations of advice, or a member of the public may feel that in taking into account all matters that there is this risk, you will in all likelihood have been seen to predetermine the matter. Accordingly, if you feel you have predetermined your position, you should not be taken into any part within the vote. Predetermination can not only invalidate a decision, it can lead to proceedings being brought against the Council and could also amount to a breach of the Members' Code of Conduct. So this would be the appropriate opportunity for you to declare that. I would add, though, that you are entitled to hold a preliminary review about a particular matter in advance of a meeting. We refer to this as predisposition. As long as you keep a genuinely open mind and prepared to consider the merits of all the arguments and the points made about the matter under consideration before you reach your decision today. It should be noted that this issue on predetermination is an issue for members alone to determine. For the sake of clarity, manifesto commitments and policy statements which are consistent with the preparedness to consider and weigh relevant factors when reaching the final decision are examples of legitimate predisposition, not predetermination. In addition, previously expressed views on matters which arrive for the decision in the ordinary run of events are routine, provided you are able to approach these with an open mind. So I'll hand over back to yourself, Leader.
Thank you, Craig. Agenda item 3 are declarations of interest. So can I ask, are there any declarations of interest? Please would members say what the items are and what the interest is. And if Jane can forward an electronic version of the form to be completed and emailed back to her. So can I have any declaration of interest? Sian, please.
Hi, regarding item, thank you, Chair. Regarding item number 6, it mentions Cumbrumble in the appendices, and my daughter teaches at Cumbrumble, and I've got dispensation to speak and vote.
Anybody else online? Nia, please.
Regarding the Swansea Valley Schools consultation, I'm a governor at Alltwen School.
Thank you, Nia. Alan?
Diolch yn eilydd, yes, it's just to repeat the declaration that I made earlier in relation to being a governor at Ysgol Gymraeg Ystol Afera Bodir.
Simon?
dispensation.
Thank you, Leader. And I think it's item, Mod Gov isn't working at the minute, but I think it's item 7, and I'm a board member of Neath Training Centre on that item. Thank you.
Anybody online? Anybody else? I don't see any, Jane. Thank you, members. Agenda item 4 are the minutes of the previous meeting, which were held on the 29th of June, the 28th of July, 19th of October, and the 21st of November. They are on pages 5 to 40 of your agenda pack. They are here for approval of accuracy. So have members any comments on the accuracy of the minutes?
I can't
No.
see any hands raised, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. I now refer members to the minutes of the 29th of June, 28th of July, 19th of October and 21st of November 2022. I propose, could I have a seconder?
Hapus Eilio, pleased to second.
Thank you, Alan. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you are content with the accuracy of those minutes. And Jane, can you please confirm?
Yes, Chair, I can see no hands raised in contrary, so those items have been approved for accuracy.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 5 is public question time. I have received no notifications from the public to speak at today's meeting. Agenda item 6 is the Strategic School Improvement Programme proposal to establish an English media 3 to 11 school to replace Allwen, Godagraig and Llangwyd. Did I say that right, Alan? Llangwyd? Yeah. Primary schools. The report is on pages 41 to 332 and it's here for a decision. In addition, the consultation document Appendix A and E was circulated on Monday via mod.gov. Do officers have any further comments on the report?
Not for me, Chair.
Thank you. Before I go to members' questions, I'd like to make a few comments on this agenda item this afternoon. Firstly, can I thank the Chair of Scrutiny and the Scrutiny members for their very challenging, very informative questions, and for Andrew, I know it's been mentioned, to get out of his sickbed and take this very motive subject still in this authority. And the amendment that has been put forward by the committee, I'm minded to not go with that amendment. I will bring in the Cabinet Member for Education to ask a few questions and explain. But Andrew, just to confirm, and for us to have this right, you mentioned in scrutiny that to go with the amendment, that the delay in the process would take up to a year. And that would mean that children would stay in Portakabins for an additional year if that amendment was passed this afternoon by Cabinet. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, Chair. It's highly likely. And the reason I say it's highly likely, because if you start consulting after Christmas, one, you put yourself under a huge amount of pressure because it doesn't allow you for any additional time to consider anything. Then we have the big issue here, of course, is as I said earlier, the planning process, which of course you have to, there's a consultation period associated with the planning for a new school, if that were to be the decision. And as I said, around the surveying, and the surveying has to be done at certain times. And if you miss those times, you have to, it's basically, you've got to do those surveys in a year's time. There are certain surveys which you have to do at certain times. So it is highly likely that that delay will cause that much of a change in terms of implementation. It might not be the full year, Chair. It might be 2 terms, but it is highly likely that it'll be the full year that those children and those staff would need to be in the temporary accommodation at Cwmtawi.
Thank you, Andrew. Over to Cabinet Member for Education then, Ian Jenkins, please.
Thank you, Chair. I can fully understand why the Chair of the Scrutiny Committee tabled this amendment. And as you said, it is a very emotive subject in the area. It would be perceived by the public, I believe, to be a fairer option to do it after Christmas because of all everything else that goes on during the festive period. Looking at it, that would extend it to the 17th of February. Could we not start it, rather than that would extend the time forward by 3 weeks. Could we not start it earlier in January possibly, so it would only impact the extension by possibly 1 week?
Andrew, did you get that question? Would that affect that delay of a year if what Neath is saying was implemented?
To be honest, Chair, it's not as simple as saying yes or no now, because, and the reason I say that is I've got a timetable which we've worked out, which starts on the 9th of January, which is basically the start of term. I said earlier about the 42 days, but there are more complications than just the 42 days. At least 20 of the days in the 42 have to be term time. So by the time you build in holidays, you got to take those out. So, and similarly with the 28 days, I think it's 15 days of the 28 days in the statutory objection period have to be term time as well. So I'd have to work out a programme specifically for you, Chair, because we'd have to think about the school holidays and how they fall and what that means for the timetable. So I can't, I'm afraid I can't give you an answer sitting here today, because we'd need to look at the term time calendar and to see how many of the to meet the requirement of the statutory code in terms of the consultation period, where that would take us to. So it isn't just a case of weeks. Sometimes because of holiday periods, it's longer than that.
Neath, do you want to come back?
I don't think, when I've looked at it, it doesn't impact. The consultation period wouldn't take place over any holiday period. It would be completed before the half term of the spring term.
And Andrew, you can't give the answers now, of course. Could we need to get this right. We said that it needed to be a meaningful consultation, and that's what we're trying to do. Could you possibly, I'll take advice of Karen or Craig on where we go with the item now this afternoon. We need to get it right. We would like the best consultation period as possible. That doesn't delay the decision or to allow children to remain in the porta cabin. So could we find something that gives this, from our point of view, meaningful consultation? Because that's what I think the Cabinet are after this afternoon, rather than going with what's in the report. So can I ask for advice on this from Craig, and then Cabinet can hear what Craig has to say. Thank you.
Can I suggest then, Leader, in that sense, obviously, the way in which you could take this forward is the Cabinet members could ultimately approve the recommendation that's before members today, but seek a delegated power for the Director of Education in consultation with the Cabinet member to, if there is a need ultimately to extend the period of any consultation, to give a longer period then forward. So it wouldn't necessarily hold up any determination ultimately that's before members today. But obviously, if you do want to look at a slight extension of time to give a longer period to enable you to get the advice from officers ultimately as to what's feasible and what's not, just that delegated power is granted to Andrew in consultation with the Cabinet member.
Thank you for that, Craig. I think that's an excellent suggestion and a way forward. Any other Cabinet member have any comments to make after listening to what Craig has to say? Ayman?
Yeah, just for clarity, can we just get a final version on what exactly it is we're saying? Because I am getting mixed messages about what we're doing and how we start, when we start and when we finish. And I would like it to be clear and concise. And I would also add, in terms of the recommendation going forward for delegated power, delegated authority, that Andrew and Neath and either yourself or Alan are also included in that list. So it's 3 people. So for me, please.
I'm the chair of Scrutiny Committee, Cara was mentioned.
Of course, because we did that earlier on, yes. Yeah.
I'll take that as part of the recommendation as well. But clarity on, you mentioned the time frames that you're going to discuss, but if you can give Simon clarity on the dates that you just mentioned.
In which respect, sorry?
The consultation period.
Oh, right, where the consultation period then would be as is in the agenda, starting on the 5th of December, which is coming on Monday. But then that would allow us, if necessary, to extend it into the first week of January. So it would give us an extra week, which would allow more pupils and their parents to interact with the consultation without the hindrance of the school holidays.
I thought it was already going further into January than what you've just suggested. Oh, sorry. What was it? Yeah, Craig, if you can, please. Yeah, let Craig, Simon.
What I would suggest then, Cabinet members, is obviously you look at the recommendation, which is before you, at paragraph 192 of the report. And in essence, what you will be doing is adding at the end of that delegated authority be granted to the Director of Education, Leisure and Lifelong Learning in consultation with the leader, Cabinet member and Chair of Scrutiny Committee to agree any additional time for the responses to be received as part of the consultation following this meeting. So that way then what you effectively are doing is agreeing the recommendation that's before you to try and take into account if there is any additional periods you can add to the consultation period without having too much of a detrimental impact on the timetable. You can work with Andrew to try and find some suitable compromises there, and then that decision will be delegated to the Cabinet member, leader and Chair of Scrutiny Committee.
Yes. I think, Karen, you mentioned that earlier anyway, and the scrutiny chair as well. Simon, you want to come back?
Just to come back to say that just literally up until the last couple of seconds, ModGov has been down during this meeting, so we haven't been able to see it. So now I'm looking at it again. So we're going out for consultation on the 5th to the 25th of January, but with an opportunity that if we do need extra time, that is afforded as long as the 4 people, sorry, allow that to happen. Is that what we're all saying?
Yes.
Then I'm happy with that. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
With that.
I just wanted to concise in my head to understand.
Yeah, I will. Now I know about the amendment first from what I'm going to say. Thank you for that. And ModGov was down, so that's why the members hadn't been able to see the papers. I'm well aware that we have to deal with the amendment that put forward to us. So I'll hand over to Craig on the process, how we deal with that first.
Okay, if I can just add then as well, Leader, just on part of that, when I've referred to the Chair of the Scrutiny Committee, I'd be referring to the Chair of the Cabinet Scrutiny Committee, given that that's where the determination has been made here today and where that recommendation came from. So the way in which then I'd suggest members take this forward is the recommendation is on page 192. So we'll deal with the proposed amendment to it first. The amendment would be as is written on paragraph 192, just with an addition at the end that delegated authority be granted to the Director of Education and Lifelong Learning in consultation with the leader, Cabinet member for Education and Chair of Cabinet Scrutiny to look at ways where the timetable could be extended in order to provide further time for members of the public to respond to the consultation. So the way in which we would take this forward is, can I have a proposer for that amendment, please?
I'll propose that amendment, Craig.
And if I could have a seconder?
Happy to second. Thank you.
Any members want to abstain on that? Are there any members who wish to vote to the contrary, that is to oppose the amendment before it goes any further? On that note then, I think we can assume that that amendment has ultimately been carried. So we now look at the substantive motion. And I would just add for that, could I have a proposer for the amended substantive motion, please?
I'll propose that.
And a seconder?
Yes, I'll second. Thank you.
And again, any members wish to abstain? And therefore, any members who wish to vote to the contrary on this, that they do not oppose, that they are against, sorry, the recommendation.
Thank you for that, Craig.
I think we confirm this.
That helped me out a lot. Thank you very much. Okay then, moving forward. Agenda item 7 is the third sector grant funding, awards of grants for 2023-2024. The report is on pages 333 to 352 and is here for a decision. Do officers have anything further to add?
Just to say, Chair, that the applications were assessed by a cross-directorate team of officers, and the recommendations are included in appendices 1 to 3 of the report, and the recommendations are on page 317 of the agenda pack. So happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. Do members have any questions?
Chair.
Councillor Llewellyn, please.
Yeah, diolch yn fawr, Wynedd. It's not a question, but just a very, very brief comment that I think, I'm grateful to the officers for the very thorough work that they've done in assessing all of the grant applications. And I think that, we're pleased that this is, for this year anyway, is an enhanced fund that will support so many voluntary organisations across the county. Their contributions are invaluable, and it's being able to support some new organisations in addition to long-standing partners, and ensure that we will be doing everything that we can to maintain our partnership with the voluntary sector in the difficult years that are to come.
Thank you, Alan, and I'm sure we all concur with the comments you've made. Anybody else have any questions? Don't see anybody. I now refer members to the recommendations on pages 335 of your agenda pack and associated appendices. I would like to propose this agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Alan. Members, if you wish to abstain from voting on this item, please raise your hand, either on Teams or in the chamber.
I can see no hands raised. There's no abstentions,
Thanks,
Chair.
Jane. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations, and Jane will confirm the outcome.
I can see no hands raised to the contrary, Chair, so that item's been approved.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 8 is the Public Participation Strategy 2023 to 2028. The report is on pages 353 to 404 of your agenda pack, and it's here for a decision. Do officers have anything further to add?
No, nothing to add, Chair, but happy to take questions.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Don't see any. I now refer members to the recommendation on the page 356 of agenda pack and associated appendices. Members, if you wish to abstain from voting on this item, please raise your hand.
See no hands raised, Chair, so no members are abstaining.
Thanks, Jane. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you are in favour of the recommendations. Jane will confirm.
I can see no hands raised to the contrary, Chair, so that item's been approved.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 9 is delivery of the Welsh Government's discretionary cost of living support scheme. The report is on pages 405 to 414 of your agenda pack, and it's here for decision. Do officers have anything further to add?
Just briefly, Chair, just to mention this report is in front of Cabinet today to ensure we maximise the available Welsh Government grant funding, and just to bring Cabinet's attention to the second recommendation of on page 390 in relation to the delegated authority for myself, yourself as leader, and the Cabinet member for Finance, Performance and Social Justice to determine an appropriate method of funding for food banks during the rest of this financial year. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Hugh. Thanks for that information. Members, do you have any questions? See none, Jane? I refer members to the recommendations on pages 408 of your agenda and associated appendices. Members, if you wish to abstain from voting on this item, please raise your hand.
I can see no hands raised, Chair, so there's no members wanting to abstain.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations, and Jane will confirm.
I can see no hands raised, Chair, so that item's been approved.
Thank you, Jane. Agenda item 10 is the calculation of council tax base for 2023-2024. The report is on pages 415 to 420 and is here for a decision. Do officers have anything further to add?
Just one comment, Chair, in relation to paragraph 5 on page 398, to draw members' attention to the fact that we are increasing the assumed collection rate of council tax from 97.5% to 98%. Historically, for the last 3 years, we have been the best performing council in Wales. That's credit to Anne Hinder and her team. So we think we can achieve that 98% collection rate even during these difficult times, Chair. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Hugh. And I think that's very important to recognise being the best in Wales. That take that message back to Anna and her team from the Cabinet.
She's on the call, Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't sure you was online. Excellent work, and pass the message on to your associated members in your office so that they are recognised on the excellent work they're carrying out for the authority. So well done, Anne. Thank you. Members, have you any questions? I see none. Before I go to the recommendation, I can see that the decision is for immediate implementation. Councillor Rogers is no longer with us here as Chair of Cabinet Scrutiny.
He is aware of.
But he is aware of this report, just for clarification, Jane. Is that okay? I refer members to the recommendations on pages 418 of the agenda pack and associated appendices. Members, if you wish to abstain from voting on this item, please raise your hand.
I can see no hands raised, Chair, so there's no members abstaining.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations, and Jane will confirm.
I can see no hands raised to the contrary, Chair, so that item's been approved.
Thanks, Jane. Agenda item 11 is the Corporate Governance Improvement Action Plan for 2022-2023, and it's a half-yearly progress report. The report is on pages 421 to 426, and it's here for monitoring. Do officers have anything further to add?
No, nothing to add here. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, you. Members, any questions? No? Thank you. This item is here for monitoring, so no decision is required. Agenda item 12 is the Q2 corporate indicators and Chief Executive Directorate Service Level Key Performance Indicators 2022-2023. The report is on pages 427 to 448 and is here for monitoring. Do officers have anything further to add?
Nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any questions? This item is here for monitoring also, so no decision is required. Thank you. Agenda item 13, urgent items. I have one urgent item this afternoon, and it's the Pontardawe Swimming Pool emergency works, which was circulated yesterday. Members will find it on pages 1 to 118 of the supplementary agenda pack, and it's here for a decision. Do officers have anything further to add?
Nothing, Chair.
Nothing, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Paul. Members, any questions? Councillor Llewellyn, please.
Yes, Chair. Again, it's not a specific question because I think the item is given a very good hearing and airing in scrutiny. But I'd like to repeat the thanks that was given to the staff team at the pool for the way that they have responded and assisted, the users of the pool, and particularly those that have been making such good use of the swimming lessons and so on. I think that Councillor Percy raised some very pertinent points in his comments in scrutiny. Certainly for us as a new administration, we're aware of backlogs in essential work, across the a large number of the buildings that we have as an authority, and of course we are looking at a review of buildings and accommodation. So I'm sure that these issues will be further clarified to us. But I appreciated the suggestion that the Regeneration Scrutiny Committee will be looking at a specific item of work, which I think will prove invaluable for helping us determine a way forward, not just for this particular facility, but for many of the buildings that we have responsibility for. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, and I'm sure the officers will take the points and note them. It is critical that we do take on board what scrutiny brought up this afternoon, and Sean in particular. And can I just thank them myself as well? Paul, Andrew and the team and those involved. Can you also take those comments back to, I believe, Andrew with Celtic Leisure? I mean, they've also been involved in making sure that there's a smooth sort of transition in how we go about repairing and dealing with the most important part, as I see it, the general public, schools, and other users of the pool. So can you please make sure that those involved are recognised in the efforts to resolve this as soon as possible?
Yeah, I'll certainly pass that on to Richard Lewis, the Chief Executive, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. Before I go to the recommendation, I can see the decision is for an immediate implementation. And again, we mentioned Councillor Rogers, the Chair of Cabinet Scrutiny, is not here, but he's already told Jane he's happy with this recommendation. So I refer members to the recommendations on page 5 of the supplementary pack and associated appendices. I'll propose this recommendation. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Alan. Members, if you do not raise your hand, if you wish to abstain from voting on this item, sorry, raise your hand.
I can see no hands raised, so no member is abstaining.
Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendation, and Jane will confirm.
I can see no hands raised to the contrary, so that item has been approved.
That brings our business this afternoon to a conclusion. Can I just thank you for your attending, and it ends the business of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.